Coming up on Oakdale Update, Larry Eberhard will join me in the studio to talk about being a lifetime resident of Oakdale and his success as a local realtor. Plus, we'll preview some upcoming events taking place in the city. Stay tuned, Oakdale Update is straight ahead. Hello and welcome to Oakdale Update. I'm your host, Frank Orsello. This is the City of Oakdale's news and information program about your community. I'm now joined by Oakdale resident Larry Eberhard. Larry, thank you for joining us on Oakdale Update.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Frank.
That's okay. So Larry, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So as you had mentioned, I'm a lifelong resident of Oakdale. Actually, I live in the house right next door to the one I grew up in. I grew up on the dairy farm right off of Stillwater Boulevard, went to Eagle Point Elementary School, Maplewood Middle School, it was a middle school back then, or junior high, and then Tartan Senior High School. Then on to UW River Falls for a 4-year degree in business and economics, and still right back to the city then.
Right back. And you're living just a little ways from your original house too, right?
Right next door.
Right, right next door, okay. Hey, so you and I go back a lot of years, I was thinking the other day, and when I was getting this ready, and it's been a lot of years, hasn't it?
It has been a lot of years. You and I talked a little bit about it, that I think I first started coming to your shop when I was in high school,
In
maybe?
high school, so that's got to be 70?
Graduated from Tartan in 81, so it was a little bit before that. So,
Yeah, so in
40,
78, 9? Oh, my
40
goodness.
some years, yes.
Yeah, geez. Well, our friendship has lasted a pretty long time, huh? That's interesting. No, we're good. We're all right. You and I are very active in local community things, the board of directors here
Yes.
and there, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's been a fun ride. It really has
It
been
has.
great.
It has. And that keeps us in touch too.
Yes.
And that's always good. Okay, so in fact, I was just thinking the other too, I wrote, many years ago I did a special about the history of Oakdale, and I interviewed all the old people that we could get our hands on. That's got to be 10, 15 years, maybe even longer. But your dad was one of them. Let's see, Morphew, Jerry Belisle, he was one of the original council people in Oakdale, and Herb Vogel, he was one of the first, second mayors, and so now I'm interviewing you because you've picked up the flag. You're one of the old people now.
So does my hairline give it away?
It is. It is.
That generation. Yeah. Those are some great people that you had on and interviewed, and what a wealth of knowledge that they had.
Yeah, absolutely. The Shokin people. Oh yeah, God, they've been around. So you're in real estate now. Who do you work for, and how does that structure work in terms of you work for them, or do you have people?
So shortly after my construction stint in construction, I ended up venturing into real estate. That was back in December of 1988, actually, and I started with Edina Realty then, and worked for them for 13 years maybe, and then in 2003, I made a change to a different broker, Keller Williams Realty, which is where I'm still at right now. So Keller Williams, like most companies, it's a broker. The only difference with Keller Williams is that they're a franchise, and so the agents work, the company or the broker holds the license. We all, as real estate agents, are independent contractors. So they don't, there's no, I mean, in terms of pay structure, they don't pay us. It's very simple math, thankfully, relative to my math courses at Tartan. It's really simple. If you don't sell houses, you don't earn a paycheck. It's very simple.
Is that right?
Yes.
Now, what about benefits? Do you get benefits from the company?
No,
or
there's no benefit. We're all
Self-employed.
It's no different than your shop as well. You
Right.
pay
Me
all
and
your
my
own
people,
benefits
all the same
and
thing. They,
yes.
they pay their own benefits and everything. Yeah.
That's
So you're an
correct.
independent contractor,
Yes.
basically. Yeah.
Now the only difference is that I've also added people to my team that help me to leverage some of my time. So right now I have 2 full-time staff members. Laura Kloby is my marketing director, so she does all of the things relative to marketing and photos and all of the things that make the houses ultimately appear so beautiful online. And then Sarah Lentz is my director of operations, and she helps. She's also licensed. All of them are licensed real estate agents. And they help throughout the process because in an average real estate transaction right now, there's about 180 plus different pieces that go into from the start of the process until it closes.
Well, who actually sells the house? You? Or
Well,
them, or-
so that varies. So my specialty that I work on now is listing the house. So if someone is looking to sell their house, then that would be where I come in to offer my advice and expertise and knowledge and maybe a tad bit of wisdom, hopefully, to help them maximize the sales price. So that then once though we take the property live, then there's the photos and there's all the paperwork and there's seller's disclosures and all of these things that some of the other staff members help me with. And then of course, once you get to the time of the purchase agreement, then there's the negotiating that has to take place as well, which hopefully again, after 31 years in the business, I'm hoping I have a little bit of expertise in the negotiating business to help get to that point and ultimately an accepted contract. And then some of the staff members then will help me to provide a great customer client experience from the point of the purchase agreement all the way to closing.
Okay, so I have to ask you that that's a lot of time that you have to put in too. I mean, you've got all this help, but who is really ultimately the person who
Yes.
put?
Yes.
It's you.
Well, and in a lot of cases, that would be me. Yes. Now, again, dialing back a little bit. So I mentioned. I think most people probably know that I grew up on the dairy farm. So I mean, that was my upbringing, and there were 3 things that you were allowed to do. You could work, you could eat, or you could sleep. Those were the 3 options. And so, growing up in an environment like that, which was very much 12+ hour days. It was a little bit of a natural transition into the real estate business because, for all intents and purposes, the real estate business never stops. It runs 24/7.
It has to.
And so that was. I mean, it wasn't anything new to me to be working those long, sometimes arduous hours and 5 and 6 days plus a week. But that's part of what's involved in the real estate business too.
Sure. You know what? And I neglected to ask you about the farming. You actually lived on a farm on Stillwater Road, is that correct? Is that where the family farm?
Yeah, so it's now Stillwater Boulevard.
Yes.
And it's now County Road 6, although so my great-grandfather, who came from Goldau, Switzerland, originally settled in a house on Beverly Road in St. Paul, which is on the north side of the Town and Country Club. And then in 1920, he bought 2 farms out in Oakdale. One was the 160-acre parcel that was part of what I grew up on, and then the other one that still exists is on County Road 13 or Inwood Avenue. There's an 80-acre parcel there as well. Now, on the dairy farm that I grew up on,
that they had 80 acre. Who is that?
that's
your
still in the
family?
family. That was my great uncle. That was my grandfather's, my great grandfather's youngest son.
Oh,
And
okay.
his family still owns that 80 acres.
They
Yes.
do, huh?
Yes.
But is that farmed? Are they farming it?
Well, it is still farmed. All 80 acres are still farmed. They
Yeah.
don't farm it themselves, so it's rented.
Sure.
They rent it out.
Sure. Okay. All right. So so your family, your farm was actually off of Stillwater Road. Is that correct?
It's on Stillwater Boulevard, just about a quarter mile east of Interstate 694. That's right.
Okay. Would you be on the north?
And
or-
it's on the farm itself. Most of the farm is on the south side of Stillwater Boulevard. There's a little section, actually, where I live, is on the north side. That was the north end of that 160-acre
Okay.
parcel.
The farm that is still there.
Yes.
That's your uncle or your cousin.
It is what was when I was growing up, my uncle lived on the farm proper. That's correct. And I lived on the north side of Stillwater Boulevard.
And so that uncle was your dad's brother. Is that
Correct.
Okay. So how did that work? Who owned the farm land? I mean, or did they all share it?
Well,
or what?
it was all when my grandfather passed away, my uncle and my dad inherited the farm, the buildings and the land. And then it was divided a little bit more where my dad actually got a little bit more land, where my uncle got the homestead and the buildings.
And the farm that's still there.
And the farm that's still there.
And so his son is still farming it, or there's nothing to farm, but they got cattle there.
Well,
right?
there's 12 acres. There's 12
there
acres
is,
left
okay.
there yet in the homestead, the farmstead, and there are still. So I still have first cousins that live on the farm there, and then there's still for people that would drive by, and there's a lot of people that go by on that path. They still have some of the brown Swiss dairy cattle, which again my great grandfather came from Switzerland, and at some point he introduced the brown Swiss dairy cattle into the mix of things, and we've had brown Swiss dairy cattle there probably since the 1930s.
Are those milking cows?
They are, but we don't do any more milking. The milking operation ceased there in about 2000. Summer of 2000 was the last they milked, but they still have young stock there, but they're not doing any milking. And then once they get to the point where they're old, then my cousins have some other places that they move the cattle to.
Okay, I remember hearing one time that the Eberhard farm, the one where the milking was going on, produced some more. Most of the milk in Washington County, or as much milk in Washington County, or something.
I don't know about that, but I know they were very proud of the butterfat content in the milk. Was so the brown Swiss have a different than say the Holstein, and so there were some high counts there. I don't know that it was necessarily a big producer, but the reality is there's not too many dairy farms left in Washington County.
I know.
Producing.
Probably if they had 2 cows producing, that's more than most places.
Yes. Oh, that could be, yes.
Okay. All right, so I slid back there. I forgot there was some things I want to. And then again, so your land was it's subdivided.
Yeah, in the night. So in the the land was actually sold sometime in the 70s. And then it finally was developed in the early 80s. In the early 80s, they started on the north end of the farm, which was right by Stillwater Boulevard, and then they moved the whole development moved toward the south. So probably the biggest known builder in that area at that time was Good Value Homes. So Good Value Homes built hundreds of houses back in there, and then the south end of that property butted up to the Joe Schultz property, and then they continued on through there. And then there was some Splitstozer land that was in there as well next to I-694. A lot of that was Jefferson Homes built some of that as well. So that all basically during the 80s, probably from the early 80s until the mid 1990s, most of those houses were built there.
Yep, I remember it well. We just had moved in there, and then the freeway wasn't there. I mean, the freeway was in there about 71 too. Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do remember. With old snowmobiles that we actually snowmobiled on the road bed there, where what was going to be eventually the freeway there of 690 or of 694.
Yep. Okay, so I'm sorry I slid back there. Now let's get back to the real estate.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about how many people were for you. You had 3 people, 4?
Well, I have 2 people that work full time for me, and there's another gentleman that works for me as well, and he specializes with a lot of the buyer clients. So he's an independent contractor, works with me. So right now is the team of 4, myself and 3 other people.
Right now, it seems to me real estate has got a lot of cycles to it. So you've been around long enough that you have been through probably every cycle there ever was. Tell me about it.
Maybe not everyone, but I mean some of the more memorable things. Well, I remember when I got into business in 1988, very late 1988, I think the interest rates were hovering somewhere around 10 or 11%. And we were actually joyful because, of course, they had come down from some of their highs of 17%, 8 or 9 years earlier, right? And then there was a great run all the way up, and there were a couple blips along the way. I think the most notable recent ones, though, people would remember would be, of course, the mortgage debacle of 2007 and 2008, where things were inflated and there was a lot of foreclosures that came, and that really slowed the market down substantially. And it wasn't until about 2013 or so that we finally started crawling out of that. And now things since 2013 or so, things have been rolling very, very strongly. And right now we're in an environment where interest rates, again, it's hard for me to even comprehend. We were jumping up and down at 10% interest rates back in the early 1990s. And now to think that 30-year interest rates could be in the mid-3s is almost
mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling just to think that, yes.
Yeah. You never thought you'd see that day.
No.
I mean, really.
No, I saw like my dad, like an old man, like I never thought I would see that day. But I remember 10 years ago, people saying, well, the interest rates could get under 5%, and I thought, I don't think that's possible. There's no way that could happen.
Well, again, that's the cycle of real estate.
Yes.
You've seen it all.
It'll go up, it'll go down, there'll be buyer's markets, there'll be seller's markets, absolutely. And it's going to, hopefully it'll keep ebbing and flowing.
Okay, so right now we're going through some COVID-19. How's that affecting your business?
I think it's counterintuitive to most people of how it's affecting the business, because one would think, well, with COVID, you can't see houses and there's not people out there. I would say that in terms of the cycles, we're probably in one of the best 3 or 4 markets that I've been in 30 years. The interest rates are very low and the supply of houses is very low. And the combination of those simple economics has led to a very, very strong seller's market.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes. Yeah, so there's when houses, now it varies by price range, but I mean for the most part, and certainly in Oakdale, if for houses that are probably under $350,000, maybe $325,000, if a house goes on the market, there's probably going to be 6 or 8 or 10 showings in the first couple days, maybe more. And it's very common that we would see multiple offers even in the first few days or the first week.
What about all these people that lost their jobs in the last? A good 6 months to a year that people lost their jobs. So
furlough. So there's another component of it. So getting to the purchase agreement has been relatively easy. There's a lot of people that can write offers and get a purchase agreement accepted. It's another component getting from the purchase agreement to closing for that very reason. Lenders are changing parameters in terms of what credit scores can be. One day a buyer may have a job, the next day they may not. One day they may be working, next day may be furloughed. So there's dynamics in there that make it more challenging than ever getting from the purchase agreement to closing. Again, it's relatively easy to get to the purchase agreement. Getting to the closing, that takes a little bit more skill and navigation.
Yeah, I see. I know you're very, you really work at your business. I mean, you sold my house many years ago, one of my houses. Okay, you sold one of my houses, and of course, we've been friends too, but you keep in touch with me in terms of, you have free pies at Easter time or Thanksgiving, whatever the heck it was, and you have get-togethers, and you thank your people, you have invitations at for wine tastings or whatever at places. That's one of your mantras, I think. I don't know if anybody else that does that.
So everyone, I mean, it's just a different avenue. Different people do different things, and so for me, my business has been built substantially on relationships. Not just numbers, but knowing people, understanding people, knowing special days, knowing when birthdays, knowing when anniversaries. So it could be a wedding anniversary, it could be a home anniversary, right? Do I ever call you on your house anniversary?
Yes.
Probably.
Every year.
Right? Every
year.
So those types of things, because I still am a little bit maybe old school in that way to believe that, again, people really don't care how much you know, in my case about real estate, until they know how much you care. So it's more to me than just than just a transaction. It's getting to know people and giving back, not only to my clients, of course, to the community as well.
When I think of all the parties that you put on, when I say parties as get-togethers, and then you have door prizes, and you have wines and liquors and whiskeys and stuff. How could I possibly go to anybody else?
Well,
I mean, that's how I feel about it. How could I possibly not? When I go to sell my house, how could I go to anybody else?
Well, that's exactly what I'm hoping that you're thinking. It's no different than Coca-Cola, right? I mean, all the advertising, all the media, all the things, right? When you go and ask for something to drink, if you're going to drink some kind of a carbonated beverage, right? You will say, well, I'll take a Coke. Now, you may not really mean a Coke, and so that's the same thing for me. I want to stay in touch with my people, and I want to add value. I want to give things that are going to be worthwhile, not just useless gadgets. To the point, though, where when they think about real estate, then I'm hoping that now, again, I won't always get the opportunity, but when they think about real estate, I'm hoping that the next thought that goes through their mind is Larry Eberhard.
Of course. It's the only guy that I know in the real estate business, because he sends me these Christmas cards and these birthday cards and everything. How could I not go to Larry Eberhard? Well, good for you, though. I mean, that's exactly what you're trying to do.
Well, and it takes a lot of work to do that. And to stay on top of those things and not miss it. And I'm not perfect, of course. I mean, I miss birthdays once in a while, but I'll still call and sing people happy birthday, even if it's a day or two late. But just there's that constant work, because if you ever stop doing it, people will forget about you very quickly.
They'll forget about you in a heartbeat.
That's correct.
There's a lot of competition out there.
There's a lot of competition. That's exactly right.
Now,
yes.
let me ask you this, Larry. Are you ever sorry, or have you ever been sorry that you got into the real estate business?
No, I mean the hours are long, and it's a business that literally can go 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So
Sure.
you have to manage your schedule and time off relative to all of the demands that are there. But if I think back to the days when I was in the construction business, it sure beats being outside when it's 30 below and
Yeah.
you've got no gloves and trying to lay cement blocks and things like that. So I have no reservation, no hesitation. It's been a wonderful, great career for me, and a really incredible way for me to be able to stay in touch with great people in the community that I've known for years and years. I've had the opportunity to sell houses of people from Eagle Point School. Some of the teachers that were
that you
teachers
had?
of mine at Eagle Point Elementary School or Maplewood Junior High or Tartan Senior High. So it's really been a very, very rewarding thing to be so locally based.
So how long do you reckon you're going? How old are you now?
So I'll be 57 shortly.
57. Okay.
Yes.
And so how long do you think you're going to be going in this business?
Oh, well, I would say at this point, I have every intention at least another 10 years. So I guess the goal for me would be to say, okay, when I get to the point where I'm maybe not working 6-7 days a week, then does it all end there, or do I add people to my team that ultimately could keep the business going? Because there are definitely ways to be able to do that. Maybe it's not me personally showing up at your door listing your home. However, hopefully if I've done a great job of training the people that would work for me, it would be somebody that's going to bring the same energy and the same enthusiasm to the doorstep.
So why don't you have more people working for you so that you can slow down a little bit?
Well, it's that's in process. But it's every business person has to decide how big they want to grow their business, and so this group of 4 has worked very, very good for me, and it's a manageable amount where I can still stay in touch with people on a personal level.
Are you still cutting your grass at home, or do you hire that out?
I'm still doing some of that. Although, again, I have to give credit to my son Noah and my wife Vicky. They will fill in sometimes when I'm not able to do it. But I'm still I'm still pushing the lawnmower a little bit. It's good exercise.
Oh, of course it is. Just for the heck of it, about how many hours a week would you reckon you devote to your business?
So I would say it's easy 10 hours a day for 6 days a week. So if my Tartan math is right, that'd be 60 hours. So it's probably not too often less than 60 hours, and it could be 70. Not that long hours are necessarily a great thing. But the business is good right now, and so you have to use the old farming saying, you have to make hay while the sun shines.
Okay, so I'm worried about you. 'Cause I mean, really, but I've known you so many years, and you've always been a hustler. I mean, and I say that in
Yes.
Everything. You're always on the go. I remember getting emails from you 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm thinking, what the hell is he? What's he doing at 2 o'clock in the morning? He's still at the office. So,
Well, I'm proud to say that I'm not keeping those hours anymore.
well,
at
good
2
for
o'clock
you.
in the
Thank
morning.
you so much.
And so the other part of that is just getting a little bit better at saying no to I mean, there's a lot of things that come onto your platter and people want you to do, and I'd love to do all of it.
Sure.
However, again, I just as I get older, I can't do those 2 o'clock in the morning shots anymore, and then get up at 6 o'clock and be ready to go either. So
Well, good for you. Well, Larry, guess what? We're almost out of time. We are out of time. And we thought that you thought we wouldn't have enough to talk about. That didn't work real well, did it?
It has been a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity, Frank. I know that the great things that you've been doing for the city for years and years and years with this local program has been awesome and wonderful, and I can't tell you how many people as I go around in my day-to-day business and will reference the Oakdale Community Show and things like that. So you've been well. How long have you been doing this now?
21 years.
21 years.
Yeah.
So you've got some mileage behind you as
I
well,
do
and
indeed.
so
I do.
thank you very much for giving
Thank you.
me and the countless other people that have had the opportunity to interview with you on this show the opportunity. We really appreciate it.
And it seems to work out pretty well. I think we connected pretty well here today. I think our people learned something at least. Huh?
Well, I hope they did. Yes, and I guess if they have questions, again, I'm always open because I know oftentimes people will ask just general questions about the community and real estate. So if people have questions about real estate in Oakdale, feel free. My phone number is 651-702-4000. They can call, no cost, no obligation. I'm not right. Just call.
Even if you just want someone to come out and look at your house and maybe I want to sell it, huh? That kind of thing.
It happens a lot. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Larry, my friend, it's been a slice. I will see you. We got meetings coming up. I'll see you.
I appreciate the opportunity, Frank. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. That's all we have time for this month's Oakdale Update. We leave you with a list of events taking place in the city. For everyone at the City of Oakdale, thanks for watching.